Hello, everyone. So let's see the second Gladiator series, CR. I hope you've done this a little better than the previous one. I hope so. So, same thing. We had come up with a few pointers in the beginning of the session that we had taken in the previous Gladiator one, right? And I had told you that when you read the passages, try coming up with the central idea so that you're able to identify the major points, and as a result, you'll be able to mark the answers well, and that too without consuming much time. That is the sole focus, that we should not consume more time, but we should get accurate answers. So that is what we are going to do today again. We'll be seeing how to deal with these passages. Secondly, we'll be seeing how to identify the central ideas there. Not only the central idea as such, but then, yes, the major point of the author, the major idea that the author has established, and then coming to answering of the questions. And yes, a few of the questions are tricky, as of course, that is our objective also, that we can have tricky questions, but then answering should be good. Let us see. We'll deal with this now. So, as always, I'll be reading, but a little quicker, you can say, right? Or faster. So that if you have the sheets with you, if you have the test with you, you keep a notebook as well as a pen ready with you so that a few tips that I'm going to give you, you can quickly note that down. And if you have the sheets here, let's see. So unlike 2017, when the BJP formed the government, the Congress had emerged as a single largest party with 28 seats. The ruling party had a clear-cut majority on its own this time in the state of Manipur, right? A clear-cut majority on its own. Now, besides, the BJP government has received post-election support from the Janata Dal United and the Nagaland People's Front with 6 and 5 MLAs each. That means it has received support. It had a clear-cut majority. Fine. The clear verdict from the electorate this time should help Mr. Singh run a stable government free of the shenanigans that dominated his previous tenure. That means those government officials, those who are corrupt, possibly. So this sentence says that Mr. Singh can now run a stable government. Mr. Singh also ran a spirited campaign to secure an electoral majority for the BJP with some of his initiatives such as the Go to Hills and Go to Villages bearing fruit. Bearing fruit means coming up with a positive result. So the stable majority should give Mr. Singh the ballast to focus more on governance and address the immediate needs of the state. Now see, this is what Mr. Singh can do. So up till now, we can understand that yes, this BJP has got a clear-cut majority. Now Mr. Singh is there at the helm. And now what Mr. Singh can do or should do is what is following in the passage. So Manipur has a higher literacy rate, this much as compared to the country's average of 74.04%, besides achieving a medium human development index of 0.697 as of 2019. Only Sikkim and Mizoram have better indices in the Northeast, but chronic unemployment, especially of the youth, remains a key concern that needs to be tackled by the government. Needs to be tackled, we need to focus now. Now see, what I've underlined is one, it had emerged as a single largest party. Same thing, clear-cut majority in the second line. Then post-election support also it is receiving. Now Mr. Singh can run a stable government. Fine. Now, whatever he had done, he had also ran a spirited campaign. Whatever he had done before coming to this position is bearing fruit, means now he is able to reap the fruits there. So his focus more on governance is what is required. He has to address the immediate needs of the state. Then what is being given here is the positives of the state already. Now what needs to be done is here. The recurring border conflicts in villages in Manipur and Nagaland with strikes and blockades needs to end quickly. Again, I'm underlining the word need to. A majority government will be better placed to address this ticklish problem. That means we came back to the first point that they have got a majority there, and now because the government is of the majority, that means the opposition will not as such be hampering their decisions so much because they are in the majority, so they can do what is required for this state. So while the BJP remained silent on the unpopular Armed Forces Special Powers Act in the course of the election and still managed to win handily in the state, it cannot assume that the electorate agreed with the views of union government and the party on the act. It cannot assume. That means they were silent. If they were silent, doesn't mean that they were right. Or they were silent doesn't mean that the electorate has considered them to be in the right. Right. So that means they need to tackle that problem also. This could come up as a problem yet again, underline it yet again. Now, as for the weakened opposition in the state, the BJP's facile victory opens up fresh challenges for the Congress's beleaguered leadership. Even as small parties such as the National People's Party have tried to warm up to the BJP by offering outside support. Manipur is a vital border state with a history of extremism and ethnic violence whose members still remain. While a stable government is best placed to work out a lasting peace and focus on livelihood issues, it will be in the opposition's best interest to keep the government on its toes by acting maturely. So we have 2 to 3 major points here. If identified, it's a simple passage. The BJP got a majority there in the state. Manipur is already a little positive in the literacy rate, medium in the human development index, but then there is unemployment. There are few issues. Then there is that act which was not mentioned during the course of the campaigning, but then they still need to deal with that. And Manipur is a vital border state with a history of extremism and ethnic violence, which still is there. So stable government is what the BJP or Mr. Singh has to make, and what it has to do or what needs to be done is given in the middle part of the paragraph. This in mind, or this understood, we'll come to the questions now. So which of the following best captures the essence of the passage? The Northeast region has witnessed historical conflicts and tremors. Yes, it has witnessed. That means it is of the past. But the paragraph was talking about Mr. Singh coming back to the lead. So not necessarily the essence. So we can rule out one. BJP has effectively worked on its political manifestos in the Manipur region. Political manifestos, but effectively work. No, they still have to work on that act part, right? Needs to be done, needs to do. We had read it twice. So B is ruled out. Mr. Singh's electoral majority for BJP in Manipur can sustain only through effective functioning by addressing local issues. Quite easily, you can come up with this because as we had identified the points, we knew the first was electoral majority. Second, it has to do or needs to be done. We had understood those words. So effective functioning by addressing local issues. This is correct. So we'll keep this C aside. We'll go to D. N. Biren Singh's role in winning the BJP a stable majority helped him return as the Chief Minister of Manipur. But what helped him to come up as a Chief Minister was not the only point. Now that he has been elected as the Chief Minister, the trust shown by the people there, what needs to be done is ahead, what work he has ahead. So that was also what was discussed in the passage. Therefore, C becomes your answer. A, B, and D are eliminated. I hope you got this answer correct. Easy one. Second question. Which of the following can be concluded from the above passage? Now, if you are able to identify the central idea, we got the major point. We also got the essence of the paragraph. Now, what can be concluded? So, the previous regime in the state of Manipur has boosted economic growth of the state. But then, if you remember, it was given that it is still facing chronic unemployment. Like chronic means related to time. So it has been long that the unemployment problem is still there. So we can't come up with this boosted economic growth. So A is out. Armed Forces Act remains an eyesore for the people of Manipur that cannot be overlooked by the BJP. Yes, this was what he had said. That though they did not mention this in the course of campaigning, but they rather have to now, after they come into power, they have to deal with this act because they can't assume that the people of Manipur will agree or have agreed already to this act. There might be still some controversies or debate over that. So it remains an eyesore. That means it needs to be seen. It is something that will be a trouble for them, possibly, if they do not address this problem soon. So this can be a possible answer. Let's go to C. I'm putting a small tick here. So BJP has won with a clear majority this time after a cutthroat competition. right? It can be concluded or it was stated in the passage, right? And it was also not given a cutthroat competition. Cutthroat competition means very neck and neck together. So we can rule this out. Coalition government helps reap benefits of policies by everyone, hence decentralizing the power. But are we talking about that these policies will give benefits to everyone? Everyone is a very strong word, you can say. So this can be eliminated here by the coalition government, right? Because this is a very general sentence, also generic sentence that we can say. So we have B as the answer of question number 107. Right? This you can you could have done with again identifying the idea, major idea there and eliminating the options. So let's come to the next one now. 108 question. Author is most likely to agree with which of the following statements? Of course, again, we'll come back that we have understood the author's point. So let us see what he will agree to. So though unelected, opposition parties have a critical role to play in the development of a region. If you remember, the last part of that passage had that, see, opposition is a weakened one, but now what it has to do, its task is to keep the government or ruling party on its toes for the benefit of the region. It has to be very discerning there. So possible, BJP does not have support or liking from the other parties in the region. This is absolutely contradictory to what he had said. Because there were parties with 6 and 5 votes that they had given support of the people. So the border and protest issues cover a vast portion of the challenge to be addressed by the incumbent government. This can be right, but then this is something that is stated. It is an issue, right? So it is not something that is agreeing to the author's idea, because what was the author's idea? That this government, now that it has come into power, it has a lot to do, mainly address the issues there, right? So this border and protest issues, this is only mentioning the issues. These issues need to be addressed was the author's point of view. So I'll eliminate this also. And Manipur has been performing consistently well in various demographic indicators, leading to a continuous rise in its Human Development Index. But Human Development Index was not on the rise as such, no? So we'll come up with A as the answer, because this was just based on data. We need something that is going to support his view. Coming to the next question, 109. While a stable government is best placed to work out a lasting peace and focus on livelihood issues, it will be in the opposition's best interest to keep the government on its toes by acting maturely. Which of the following reflects the assumption behind the argument? What does that mean? Now see, this is the argument and it will be in opposition's best interest. That means this is what the author is saying, that the opposition should keep the government on its toes by acting maturely. What is the author thinking, or rather taking for granted, is what the assumption is. So the assumption would be before the statement, right? See, assumption is of the doer, of the speaker, or of the author. It is whatever you are doing. See, now this, you can note down this small pointer. Assumptions are of the doer, of the author, what he writes, and of the speaker, whatever he says. Assumption will be the thought which becomes the base of his action, of his statement, or of his writing, whatever he is writing. So now we need to see if this is the argument that is given in the question, what has the author taken for granted? Assumption is the base of the conclusion or the statement, and it is something that he has taken for granted. So the opposition's role in keeping the incumbent government streamlined cannot be discounted. Cannot be discounted, that means it is not an easy, it cannot be waved off. The opposition has a role to play there also in keeping the government doing things which are required to be done for the benefit of the state. ये करना ही पड़ेगा. And who is going to hold control there? See, who is going to see whether you are working well or no? Right? It will be your your competitors, it will be your rivals, how you're working and what you're not doing. Right. So here also the opposition has an important role to play. If the government, ruling government is there, not taking care of the issues that are primary there or significant issues in the region, the opposition can definitely raise its voice. And when the opposition raises its voice, the government will be pushed into doing something for tackling those issues, right? So, according to the author, the opposition's role in keeping the incumbent government streamlined cannot be discounted. That means it is important. Possible, I'll keep this with a small tick here, going to the next sentence. Only a government that finishes its tenure can bring lasting peace to a state. Now, lasting peace is a very utopian term, you can say, right? And secondly, and only when it finishes its tenure, how do you say that after 5 years only the peace is going to be there in the state or in a country or any region? You can't say that. So it is not about the tenure. It is about what you are doing or acting or whether you're tackling those issues or no. So this tenure will be eliminated. The work of the opposition is to restrict the incumbent government from its ambitious plans. Why to restrict? Opposition doesn't mean that you inhibit the role of the government or inhibit the government's measures or steps, whatever it is taking for the benefit of the region also. No. Opposition, therefore, the author said that the opposition has to act very maturely. So, not necessarily restrict. So, C is out. And the opposition party must ensure that peace and livelihood issues are key areas to be looked into. Possible. But how will it ensure? Secondly, peace and livelihood issues are the key areas to be looked into. This is correct. This is given in the passage also. But we needed what has the author assumed, right? Not what the opposition party is thinking. So the author assumed that opposition's role in keeping the incumbent government streamlined cannot be discounted. That means it is important. And therefore, the author came up with this statement that it should focus on the peace and it should work out a lasting peace and focus on livelihood issues. It will be in the opposition's best interest to keep the government on its toes by acting maturely. So the first part of the sentence is good, that this government, the incumbent government, has to work on peace and the livelihood issues, but it is the opposition that is going to keep an eye on it and act maturely. Right? So, coming to the last question of this passage. The clear verdict from the electorate this time should help Mr. Singh run a stable government free of the shenanigans that dominated this previous tenure. So this time it is a clear verdict. Which of the following, if true, will weaken the author's claim made in the argument? Now, the claim in this argument is that, see, this time you have the complete power with you, a clear-cut majority. Before that, you were not in the majority there. So, possible that you were not able to do what you wanted to do. But now, because you are there in the majority, so you have the full right and the full control in actually coming up with your plans for the benefit of that state. Now, this is what the author has said in this argument. We need to weaken. Now, weakening in the sense that earlier also you were able to do, but you did not, or you were capable of doing it, or you did not. And now also because you're in the clear cut, maybe you're not doing it. Anything in that manner will be the weakening one, right? So let us see. During the previous tenure, the state witnessed the highest inflow of refugees amongst the northeast region from the bordering countries. So, during the previous tenure, there was the highest inflow. That means the previous government was not able to handle these issues well. So this is actually strengthening the author's viewpoint, right? So this cannot be the weakening one. This is a strengthening one. I am putting S. Now, half of the term of the current incumbent of BJP has passed and the state suffers from the horrendous problem of stagflation. State suffers from the horrendous problem of stagflation would mean stagnant inflation. Now, stagnant inflation would mean this is actually not doing with the author's point made in this sentence, that this time this clear verdict should help Mr. Singh run a stable government, right? And free of the shenanigans that dominated his previous tenure. This sentence is saying that half of the term of this current BJP has passed and the state suffers from the horrendous problem. But then it is not dealing with the previous government also. The half argument that is given there in the sentence, no, free of the shenanigans that dominated this previous tenure. So this is not doing anything. Let us see. The coalition government enabled to work for overall betterment of people due to which literacy rate increased. So this government is working for overall betterment of the people and literacy rate increased. But the paragraph has already said that the literacy rate is good. The point made here in this 110 sentence is that now, because the control is in your hands, BJP can do much better than the earlier part, where it was not in the as a ruling party in that state, or it did not have that complete majority. This is the idea that we need to weaken, right? So even if B and C feel, okay, fine, this is something against, but then it is not against the idea that is being said. Until this point, I had discussed in the previous video also when I said that you should see that it is not the irrelevant sentence that we will mark, okay, fine, the author has not said anything about it, so this is going to weaken the author's idea. It is not so. Let us read the D. The major portfolio was with the BJP in the previous tenure. Therefore, the governance was dictated by the BJP party. Now, see, when the author says that now BJP can do something, what is best contradicting it is, let's see, earlier also, this major portfolio was with the BJP only. Though it was not in the majority, but it had this major portfolio. There also, at that time also, the BJP did not do much. So how is it expected that it is going to do much now? So this is contradicting the author's viewpoint or the claim that, see, now the BJP is in such a position that it can do something good. So D sentence is actually eliminating or negating the author's claim that yes, now the BJP can do much better than what the previous governance did. So here the major portfolio was with the BJP in the previous tenure. Therefore, the governance was dictated by the BJP party. That means the BJP party could have done something good in the previous tenure also. So your answer is D. A little tricky question, little confusing options. But yes, by reading carefully, you'll get to know that B and C will not be there, though they seem to be the answers, but no, D will be the answer. Let's come to the second passage now. So in the case of experience, on the other hand, the connection with a particular point of view seems much closer. It is difficult to understand what could be meant by the objective character of an experience apart from the particular point of view from which its subject apprehends it. Now, reading two sentences in the passage, we get to know that, see, this is something that is quite difficult to comprehend only, right? So we need to be reading it a little carefully, trying to extract or filter out the major point only, because rest of the things you won't be able to understand. This is when we are taking the test. Now, let us try to understand this by breaking the sentences. So in the case of experience, when we are talking about experience, on the other hand, the connection with a particular point of view seems much closer. So this connection seems much closer. It is difficult to understand what could be meant. Could be meant को underline कर सकते हैं by the objective character of an experience. When we are experiencing something, right, that is our feeling. What is objective? Objective is something that is devoid of feeling, right? So how can we understand the objective character of an experience? That means whatever we are feeling, we have to be indifferent to that and understand it in a very neutral, unbiased manner. That is the meaning of the word objective. Therefore, I'm using it. So objective means you don't allow your feelings to understand that experience. You experience something and then very objectively you will state what you have experienced. Clear this much? So I'll read the sentence again. It is difficult to understand. Of course, the author himself said that it is difficult to understand. So let us read it again. So it is difficult to understand what could be meant by the objective character of an experience apart from the particular point of view from which its subject apprehends it. That means what we have experienced and what we are understanding that experience as is one thing. Second thing will be our objective understanding of that experience. So, first, before we go forward or go ahead with this passage, understand two words, objective and subjective. Objective means neutral, devoid of any feeling, right? I'm writing it here. Objective means neutral. Devoid of feeling will be the easiest one to understand here because when we do tones in RC also, no, there too we get here. We get objective and subjective words. So objective is something that is devoid of feeling. Subjective is where we are including, yeah, our own feelings into it. After all, what would be left of what it was like to be a bat? If one removed the viewpoint of the bat, that means what it would be if we are a bat. हम अगर ऐसा कुछ पूछेंगे bat से, but we do not want his viewpoint. So how do we get to know that what that bat is thinking or what that bat has experienced? But if experience does not have, in addition to its subjective character and objective nature that can be apprehended from many different points of view, then how can it be supposed that a Martian investigating my brain might be observing the physical processes which are my mental processes? Right? So, whatever is going on in my mind is being observed very technically and very objectively by that person who is studying my brain. So he might observe the physical processes, which were bolts of lightning, only from a different point of view. How, for that matter, could a human physiologist observe them from another point of view? Right? So what we could understand from this paragraph is that one, experience we are talking about. Second, we are talking about the subjective side of the experience. It's what we understand, the image that we carry of that experience. Second, we are talking about the objective side of that experience, which we need to understand again, but without any feelings. So there are many things which have happened, which you have experienced, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years back, possible. The image that you carry now of that particular incident is not necessarily a very objective one. It may be subjective that yes, at that particular time I felt this. And then you carry that image or you will carry that image throughout the life. So when whatever you have experienced, you understand or try to understand it technically, try to understand it objectively, without including your feelings into it, without including your side into it. That will become the objective understanding of that experience. Otherwise, whenever we think of those incidents, whatever you have experienced, as I said in the example, maybe 3 years back or 2 years back, when we think of that, we immediately come up with our feelings towards that incident. Right? So we need to understand it objectively means without including our feelings. Now, we appear to be faced with a general difficulty about psychophysical reduction. This comes another term. In other areas, the process of reduction is a move in the direction of greater objectivity. Good. So we will understand this now. What is reduction? It is going towards greater objectivity. Towards a more accurate view of the real nature of things, this is accomplished by reducing our dependence on individual or species specific points of view towards the object of investigation. I think till here, till the fourth line of the second paragraph, you should be able to understand that what we discussed in the first paragraph, the author is giving now in a very simplified version. He gave a term psychophysical reduction. What is this reduction? Moving in the direction of greater objectivity. That means not including your feelings. And because you're not including your feelings, your view will be an accurate view of the real nature of things. So हकीकत दिख जाती है अगर हमने अपनी feelings उसमें add नहीं करी तो. This is accomplished. How to reach here? Is by reducing our dependence on individual or species specific points of view towards this object of investigation. So we describe it not in terms of the impressions it makes on our senses, but in terms of its more general effects and of properties detectable by means other than the human senses. That means there would be some evidence, there would be some data, there would be some understanding of the other people also, not only our human senses. This sentence is again giving you what I had given as an example now. Images I had used the word ना कि 3 साल पहले जो हुआ तो उसका image हम carry करते हैं कि वो अच्छा हुआ या बुरा हुआ या कैसा हुआ or for a particular person also. He acted in so and so manner in that particular situation. And then we carry the image that no, I don't like that person, or no, he behaved wrongly, or no, he should have done something else. That is the image that we carry throughout. But now, if you sit and understand that incident again very objectively, you will be able to understand not only according to your sense organs and what you feel, but you will get a better view or an accurate view, a more accurate view of that particular incident. That is what this author says in these lines. Now, the less it depends on a specifically human viewpoint, the more objective is our description. Now, see, you have got the point. If you have read this carefully, you will catch the point here that if our judgments or our views are not dependent on our senses, right, and not a particular human viewpoint, then that becomes objective, or that goes towards being more objective. Because sense organs means subjective. So anything apart from the human viewpoint will be making it objective. It is possible to follow this path because although the concepts and ideas we employ in thinking about the external world are initially applied from a point of view that involves a perceptual apparatus. Perceptual apparatus means what we are seeing. They are used by us to refer to things beyond themselves, toward which we have the phenomenal point of view. Therefore, we can abandon it in favor of another and still be thinking about the same things. Now, experience itself, however, does not seem to fit the pattern. The idea of moving from appearance, that was the perceptual apparatus, no, what it is being seen as, appearance to reality seems to make no sense here. What is the analog in this case to pursuing a more objective understanding of the same phenomena by abandoning the initial subjective viewpoint toward them in favor of another that is more objective but concerns the same thing? So, what is the use of whatever viewpoint we had earlier of something, what we had seen, and now you are trying to come to an objective viewpoint? So, the author says that moving from one to the other that is more objective but concerns the same thing. Then what is the use of this, or what is the relation of this? Right? Now, let us go to the questions. So we understood one point here about the objective understanding of the experience and about the subjective understanding of the experience, or the viewpoint will be objective when there is less of the sense organs involved or less of the human viewpoints involved. Then we'll get an accurate reality or the accurate view. So barring conscious experience, which process of reduction among the following has the greatest objectivity? Now, greatest objectivity and which process of reduction among the following? So these four sentences will not be there in the passage, right? We have understood the point, so we now need to apply it here. So a physicist describing a nuclear reactor to a layman. When he is describing a nuclear reactor, let us see what he uses in the description. A highly distinguished philosopher elaborating Freudian psychology to psychology students in a lecture. But this can be subjective also, no? This cannot be the answer then. A layman describing the process of lightning to a high schooler. Layman means a common man. When he describes the process of lightning, he is not going to use his own feelings about that lightning, right? But now a physicist, when he describes a nuclear reactor, he would be using what? His own feelings, his views about the nuclear reactor, he'll come up with something that is subjective. Possible. Why? Because it is his major topic. The moment you start talking about your favorite subject, you add your feelings into it. A mother who is a chef at a restaurant making her daughter note down the specific recipe for baking a cake. Now, see, this applies to the same thing. What we did in A, D also is on the same line. If it is your favorite thing, if it is something that is very close to your heart, so you will definitely add feelings into it, so it becomes subjective then. So layman, a common man, he is going to describe that lightning process as he would see it, not as he would feel about it. Because now, if a physicist would describe that lightning process, he would add all the reasons also behind that lightning with all the description there, right? So, greatest objectivity means lack of feeling, being devoid of your human feelings there, human views there. So, all the rest of the three will have the human views more. C would be your answer here. Coming to the next question, mark the correct inference. An objective point of view of an experience completely depends on the observer. Completely depends. Objectivity depends on the subjectivity of the observer. A little paradoxical statement, sort of. Subjectivity of an experience depends on the objectivity of the observer. Again, the opposite one. So if you're viewing something very objectively, how will you use your feelings there then? How will you come up with the subjectivity? Objectivity of an experience depends on the point of view of the subject that perceives it. That means who is viewing that, right? As we saw in the previous question, when a layman sees the lightning bolt or the process and he describes it, he will not be using his own reasons or descriptions there. But when a physicist will describe that nuclear reactor, so he is going to use his reasons, he is going to use his views, he is going to use his maybe his whatever he likes about that nuclear reactor, वो उसमें add कर देगा, right? So objectivity will depend on the point of view of the subject that perceives it, means who is seeing that particular phenomena. Possible? So we'll mark this. Question 113. Which of the following information would strengthen the author's contention? There is nothing left in our understanding of what is it like to be a tiger if the viewpoint of the tiger is not considered. That means how are we going to understand something if we do not ask a tiger? यहाँ पे tiger दिया है, उसने वहाँ पे bat दिया था. In the passage it was a bat, right? So if we do not consider the experience of the bat only, then how are we going to get the actual experience of that animal or whoever it is, or the subject? So possible, this is according to what the author has said. Second, no understanding of a physical phenomena can be complete without understanding the viewpoint of the phenomena. So now how to understand the viewpoint of the phenomena? We can understand the viewpoint of the subject, but not of the phenomena, and that too a physical phenomena. So B will not be there. No understanding is also out, can be complete without, again, a very strong word. And then phenomena rules out the B sentence. To understand the subjectivity of an experience, the physicality of it should be understood. Do we need to understand the physicality of it? If we understand the subjectivity, we need to understand the objectivity also, not necessarily the physicality. And to understand the objective generalization of a concept, we must understand the physical and chemical processes involved. Do we need the chemical processes, or do we need only that viewpoint that is apart from the human viewpoint? Right? So we have A as the answer, ruling out B, C, and D. Question 114. If the following statement is taken to be true, what is the statement? If an experience has, in addition to its subjective character, an objective nature, that can be apprehended from many different points of view, then which of the following must also be true? Objective nature, but that can be apprehended means understood from many different points of views. Right? You can see that from different angles, different points of views. Which of the following must also be true means necessarily. No two humans working in the field of physics would have a similar understanding or experience of a concept. Now, when you talk about no two humans working in the field of physics, well, एक ही field है, they would have a similar understanding or experience of a concept, but they can have the experience of a concept, no? Isn't it? If they're working in the field of physics and they see a mirage somewhere in the desert, so both of them will experience the same thing. They will be able to see the same thing. So, not necessary. No two humans bola. We can eliminate this. Understanding of the basic experience of gravity on Earth would differ greatly from scientist to scientist. If we are talking about the basic experience of gravity, and then we are saying that they would differ greatly, but then gravity is not understood different by different people. So this is ruled out also. Now, if a group of scientists would be asked to define their experience in a gravity-free zone, their experience would be more or less understood by each other. Why? Because they have gone through the same experience and they'll be able to understand that, yes, this is what they experienced actually. And they're going to understand each other's experiences. They'll be able to explain, they'll be able to understand. Possible? So instead of A and B, we would mark C. Next is 115. Which of the following is in keeping with the author's thoughts regarding psychophysical reduction? In order to understand experience, we should leave the subjective viewpoint to get objectivity, but then the essence of the experience would be lost. This was okay. We should leave the subjective viewpoint to get objectivity. This is understood clearly. But then the essence of the experience would be lost is given by the author in the last particular part of the paragraph. That the essence would be lost. Right. Then psychophysical reduction of our external world is possible because of our perceptual apparatus. Even this was mentioned. Our perceptual apparatus was mentioned, no? It was because of this. And psychophysical reduction in other areas is possible because we can explain the phenomena of the external world through our senses or through immediate experience. So now you know, see, these are three, and all of the above is the answer here. We know where this psychophysical reduction has been given in the second paragraph, no? So even when you're taking the test, you'll take hardly half a minute to go back to that part of the passage and then read it a little more carefully so that you're able to come up with the correct answer, right? Come on, now we'll go to the third passage. So ancient and medieval philosophers might have said metaphysics was a science. Oh God. Now you'll feel, oh God, we are getting this philosophy passage again. Again, the moment you think this way, your brain will stop working and will stop trying to understand also what this passage is about. Right? So what you all say usually is like that reading fatigue. So you get the topic fatigue. So एक passage हो गया philosophy पर बहुत है. दूसरा पैसेज एकदम से आएगा तो then you'll feel tired, right? So don't let this happen. Understand your task is only to read, get the point, answer the questions, mark the bubbles, and you get marks. That's your sole aim, sole objective, that you're going to get marks here, right? Now, how to read this and then how to make it a little simplified version sort of for our brains. So that is what we need to work on. So let's see now, passage 3. Ancient and medieval philosophers might have said metaphysics was the science that studied being as such, मतलब जो है जैसा है, or the first causes of things and things that do not change, same thing. So being as such मतलब वो वैसे ही होगा जैसा है. So it is no longer possible to define metaphysics that way for two reasons. That means nowadays we can't define metaphysics as the causes, first causes of things or things that do not change. That is not included in metaphysics now. So what is done? There are two reasons for this. First, a philosopher who denied the existence of those things that had once been seen as constituting the subject matter of metaphysics. Philosopher, I'm repeating, the philosopher who denied the existence of those things. That means he had said, no, those things do not exist. वो कर लिया था उसने. That had once been seen as constituting the subject matter of metaphysics. That means those things which he had denied कि ऐसा नहीं है, those very things now constitute the subject matter of metaphysics. First causes are unchanging things, जो हमने यहाँ पे कहा था, being as such. They would now be considered to be making thereby a metaphysical assertion. Second, there are many philosophical problems that are now considered to be metaphysical problems, or at least partly metaphysical problems that are in no way related to the first causes or unchanging things, like the problem of free will or the problem of the mental and the physical. This was the first and the second that was given. 20th century coinages like meta-language and meta-philosophy encourage the impression that metaphysics is a study that somehow goes beyond physics, right? It goes beyond physics, a study devoted to matters that transcend the mundane concerns of Newton and Einstein and Heisenberg. Transcend means to go beyond. So it goes beyond what is mundane, what is physical, what is material, right? It transcends that. This impression is mistaken. This will be the major part we'll read again. 20th century coinages like meta-language and meta-philosophy encourage the impression that metaphysics is a study that somehow goes beyond physics, right? But this impression is mistaken. The word metaphysics is derived from a collective title of the 14 books by Aristotle that we currently think of as making up Aristotle's metaphysics. Aristotle himself did not know the word. He had 4 names for the branch of philosophy that is the subject matter of metaphysics. That is a branch of philosophy, subject matter of metaphysics. First philosophy, first science, wisdom, and theology. At least 100 years after Aristotle's death, an editor of his works titled those 14 books Tamita Ta Pushika, the after the physicals. Pushika, after the physicals, or the ones after the physical ones. हमें उसका pronunciation ना आए जैसा भी हो, so don't try to pronounce it also. You have the literal translation there. So that means 100 years after Aristotle's death, an editor of his works titled those 14 books, all this, that is the after the physicals or the ones after the physical ones. The physical ones being the books contained in what we now call Aristotle's physics. The title was probably meant to warn students of Aristotle's philosophy that they should attempt metaphysics only after they had mastered the physical ones. As he said, that physical or metaphysics is something that is going beyond the physical. So what this title suggests that it is after the physical ones. That means it is like a warning to the students who want to read this that say first you should go for the physical ones and then go for the metaphysical ones. So this is the probable meaning of the title because metaphysics is about things that do not change. Here. So in one place, Aristotle identifies the subject matter of the first philosophy as being as such and in another as first causes. It is a nice and vexed question what the connection between these two definitions is. So these are the two definitions. If any question arises, we'll come back to this part. The unchanging, perhaps this is the answer. The unchanging first causes have nothing but being in common with the mutable things they cause. First causes, they have nothing in common. And that is what is common is the mutable things that these cause. Like us and the objects of our experience, they are, and there the resemblance ceases. बस इससे ज़्यादा उनमें similarity कुछ नहीं है. So we're talking about physics, talking about metaphysics, talking about going beyond the physics. Right. Let us see now whether we'll be able to solve the answers or questions or no. So question number 116. Which of the following is the correct evidence for showing that the definition of metaphysics by ancient and medieval philosophers is not valid today? We had read something of the same sort in the first passage and in the first paragraph and in the first few lines of the second paragraph. So let us see, showing that an unchangeable thing changed is in itself a metaphysical statement. So what you had thought was unchangeable, and now what you're thinking is that this has changed. So it can be a metaphysical thought only, a metaphysical statement. Then there can be no first causes possible if anything changes dynamically. Dynamically would mean it keeps on changing, not static. So if it keeps on changing, then how will we come up with the first causes? Possible. So there are first causes. There can be no first causes, no. So what we need is the correct evidence. So this will not be like an evidence. The boundary between philosophy and metaphysics has blurred the definition of the ancient philosophers. If it has blurred the definition here for showing that the definition of metaphysics is not valid today, why? Because it has been blurred. So C sentence will be there. Showing an unchangeable thing changing is itself a metaphysical statement. So first they were thought to be as unchanging, and now they are thought to be changing. So this is evidence enough that this is the definition. This could be the definition of metaphysics. So what we have here is both A and C and not B. Let's come to the next question now. Which of the following inferences is correct about the physical ones? The books about nature or the natural world. Physical ones would mean the books that we are talking about. Then concepts of Aristotle's physics. ये भी हो सकता है. Even that can be the word physical ones that is given in the paragraph. Both A and B, of course, if it could be the books, if it could be the books, if it could be the concepts. So we have both these things together in C, and hence C becomes your answer. None of the above is eliminated. Coming to the next question. Which of the following is both a metaphysical and a philosophical problem? Let us understand which of the following is a problem. फिर metaphysics and physical है वो देखते हैं. The problem of the Bermuda Triangle, ठीक है. We need something that is metaphysical and philosophical, right? So this Bermuda Triangle will not be philosophical. So let us remove this. Now defining the subjective and objective viewpoints amidst a continuous exchange of observers. Now what we are doing is subjective and objective viewpoints. We are trying to explain this to somebody, right? But those audience would be changing. A continuous exchange of observers. Metaphysical and philosophical. This is a problem. What we need here is a problem. Let us put whether this is a problem or no. Problem of the inadequacies of human life. Inadequacies of human life will, maybe it is philosophical, but may not be metaphysical. Problem of not being able to find any sign of extraterrestrial life on any other planet. So ये metaphysical थोड़ी है. So metaphysical and philosophical problem would be like B. So what is the problem? How are you going to define the subjective and objective viewpoints of an audience who is going to change very quickly? Okay, you take a seminar, half the audience is sitting there, half the audience is going to shift now, go somewhere else, and other people are going to join. Gates are open, right? So how will you actually explain this or define this? So it will be difficult for you. That makes B as the answer. Question number 118. You remember when we had come to this point, paragraph, I'll just come here, where they were talking about problems. So second, there are many philosophical problems now that are now considered to be metaphysical problems, or at least partly metaphysical problems that are in no way related to the first causes or unchanging things, like the problem of free will or the problem of the mental and the physical. So this was a part where you had to come up with your answers. Come on, 119. Which of the following would weaken the author's argument? If we think of it philosophically, then metaphysics does extend beyond physical concepts. Okay? It does extend. Philosophy and metaphysics do not have a clear distinction till date. This is clear. They do not have a clear distinction. So this is according to the author. Meaning of metaphysics should be beyond physics, should be sahi hai. And physical concepts are able to explain metaphysics possible. If we think of it philosophically, what we need is philosophical plus physical, right? So we have A as the answer because only philosophically will not be there. He had said about both the things being together. Which of the following clearly elaborates the unchanging first causes? Now, that they exist is the only similarity they have with what they cause. First read and then I'll shift to that passage because that is where we are going to find all these three. The existence is a necessary and sufficient requisite for the change to occur. Definitely you need the change to happen. Therefore, you need all this. There is no other semblance between the changeable things that unchanging first causes except the fact that the changeable thing cannot exist if there is no unchanging first cause. No other semblance between the changeable things that unchanging first causes. Matlab there is something that is unchanging, right? And it causes changeable things. Right. So this is also elaborating the unchanging first cause. So what we have is the answer is all three, A, B, and C. Coming to passage 4 now. Now see, this the previous passage or the first two passages were likely to be done, means you could have got correct answers somewhere if you start with the first and the second one. At least 8 questions should have come correct, right? Third passage, though it was like a boring one, what most of you call, no, that you're not interested in the subject, so it was a boring topic, and then you are unable to answer correctly or accurately. Possible that you could have done 1 or 2 questions, but then you have to understand, and this is going to be a trap, or this is going to be using or consuming more time here. I means I would think that most, or not most, at least a few of you would have done this, committed this error or blunder, you can say, where you gave more than 6 to 7 minutes in that passage, the previous one, the third one. And when you see that you're going to take more time in understanding, it's better you do the easier passage first then, right? So start, you can select between two passages, which one is easier one, and start doing that. So passage 4, we come across. So viewing white people, all white people, as guilty and complicit distorts the political issues and defects from real causes. Right? Distort is to change the shape of. That means the view is totally different. So viewing white people, all white people, it's understood here, as guilty and complicit distorts the political issues and defects from real causes. In America, black people are, as the sentencing project observes, more likely than white Americans to be arrested. And once arrested, they are more likely to be convinced. Iska matlab, if we are talking about the brown and the, sorry, not brown, the black and the white people. So black people will be more black people will be arrested. Then more likely to be convicted. So arrested, then convicted. And once convicted, they are more likely to experience lengthy prison sentences. Yeah. And are more likely to be killed by the police. So killed bhi aa jayega. Yet, studies also show, this was a major point, a twist in the point, that the problems faced by African Americans are not due simply to white people or even to the white police officers, but to a system of justice that is structurally deeply unjust. Very clearly, the author has stated that, see, whatever these uh, black people are experiencing, the African Americans are experiencing, it is not because of the white people only. It is because of that unjust system. It is deeply ingrained in that system now. So, nor is it just African Americans whose lives are dashed by the injustice of the justice system. So, earlier he started with that African Americans are facing the brunt, right? They are the people who are suffering. They are being arrested. They are being convicted. They are going for a lengthy prison sentence or imprisonment, and then they are also getting killed more than the white Americans. Second paragraph, he says it is not that only these African Americans are suffering by the injustices of the justice system. More than half of those killed by the US police are white. And while proportionately police killings of African Americans have fallen in recent years, that of white people has sharply risen. So very clearly we can see that it is not the difference between black and white. It is about white, and while proportionally police killings of African Americans have fallen in recent years, that of white people has sharply risen. That means it came in the end that the black counting is followed, declines, and the white counting has increased. Now we'll come to passage 4. First question. Question number 121. Which of the following best describes the author's argument? It was an easy one, so you should not take more than 5 minutes in solving the passage also, or the questions also. So they are arrested, more black Americans and white are arrested by the US police, and this inherent bias is sustained over time. नहीं, अभी तो decline चालू हुआ ना, मतलब black Americans declined and Americans this increased. So this cannot be the author's argument. The issues faced by African Americans have their roots in deep set. Yes, this was the point. But unfair structural laws, yes, in the justice system, possible, because all 3 pointers are here. We'll put a small tick. African Americans have suffered at the hands of the US police for a long time, but the strength is reversing owing to a greater awareness. That means now more people are aware that, see, The police officers are going to convict you and then they are going to you and then they are going to kill you. ये awareness create करेंगे ऐसा? Well, was that the author's argument about awareness? No. The injustice system in the US favors white people in all aspects. All aspects is eliminated. So we have B as the answer. Question 122. Which of the following is the most appropriate word to fill in the blank in the first sentence of the second paragraph? So there was a blank you must have seen. Now I'll give you the meanings and then we'll go back to that sentence. Coerced means to like persuade. Coercion होता है ना, persuade करना, force करना. Coercive actions is forcing. Abandon is to leave, let go. The abandoned palace. Devastated is completely destroyed, destruction. Bolstered is strengthened. So I'll go back to the para and see here. Nor is it just African Americans whose lives are coerced by, you are coerced into doing something. So when dealing with the blanks also, focus on the words that are following and preceding it. So coerce will be there. Abandoned by the injustices. You are not abandoned by the injustice. Third, they are devastated by the injustice. Yes, whatever the injustice has been done by the judiciary, by the judicial system or the justice system, this has destroyed the lives of the people. So destroyed hoga, the devastated could be the answer. And bolster is strengthened will be out of context. And hence devastated C becomes your answer. Question 123. Which of the following, if true, weakens the argument made by the author? We have understood the author's argument. We need to eliminate it. Black Americans are not killed by the US police now. Possible. No, but they are killed, no. And here it is saying not killed. So possible in the sense, possible weakening one. So I'll keep this aside with a small tick. African Americans are not treated equally as white Americans in the US, but this is correct. They are not treated equally, so this is not weakening the author's argument. The problems faced by African Americans are due to a system of justice that is structurally deeply unjust. Same thing. So this is also strengthening the author's point. And white Americans are also killed by the US police. Even this has been given by the author. So the weakening part will be A, that they are not killed by the US police now, that they are killing. Right. 124. What can be inferred about white people in the US according to the first sentence of the passage? African Americans have always seen all white people in the US as a threat to their existence. Always seen in all people. That will be eliminated. Not all white people are guilty and complicit in matters related to injustice meted out to African Americans. Now, if they see all white people that we eliminated here, that means the author says that not all white people are guilty and complicit in matters related to injustice meted out to African Americans. That if you go back to that paragraph, viewing white people, all white people as guilty complicit distorts the political issues. Distort means to disfigure, to change. Figure, form, structure, right? कुछ भी होगा. एक celebrity has come up with giving. He has come up with a press conference in the social media maybe, whatever the tits and bits were given. But whatever he said in front of the media had been distorted on the social media. So distorted thought means shape. The distort would be like disfigured or have come up with a deviation from what he actually stated. वो distorted होता है. So now viewing white people and all white people as guilty and complicit, this is going to distort the issue. So we were on 24. So not all white people are guilty. This can be correct. So I'll put a small tick here. White people in US are the reason for the sufferings. Not all white people, no, always. So this is wrong. And some white people in the US have to bear the brunt of the accusation that they are racist. That means few white people will be the reason for the sufferings of the black, and a few would not be there, the reason. But then they have to bear the brunt. Is that the meaning of the first sentence? So we have a simplified version of it that is in B. 125. Which of the following is a logical corollary to the last sentence of the given passage? Let us see the last sentence. So this is what you also should do. Read the last sentence again. No need to keep in mind everything. So more than half of those killed by US police are white, and while proportionately police killings of African Americans have fallen, in recent years that of white people has sharply risen. So the logical corollary to this, race and class shape people's lives in complex ways. We are not talking about shaping. Some analysis suggests that the best predictor of police killings is not race. So it was not only the African Americans, but income levels. The poorer you are, the more likely you are to be killed. So this can be possible. It is. हो सकता है ये answer हो. I'll keep it. African Americans, disproportionately working class and poor, are also likely to be disproportionately imprisoned and killed. So here it was that it is not only the race. So I rule this sentence out. Race and class are not competitive causal categories to be set against each other. The one says it is because of the race and the other says it is because of the class. Right? So not necessary. Though it seems correct, but then not necessary. So what we need is this B part. Some analysis suggests. So we have like something to prove it or some evidence sort of given there in the analysis. They suggest that the best predictor of police killings is not race but income levels. The poorer you are and the more likely you are to be killed. Coming to the next passage. So growing up, we heard our mother speaking in Hindi very rarely and mostly with a friend whom we call Durga Moshi. My mother says that she learned Hindi only after Durga Moshi became a friend. She remembers Durga as a best friend when she was working at a construction site. So now, reading these two sentences, we get to know that it is seemingly easy passage to be read. Catching the flow there, you will get the point soon. You read it like a narrative only, like a story. Now, every year, once the rainy season is over, Durga Moshi and her husband came to Nagpur from Chhattisgarh in search of work. Her husband works in brick kilns, but Durga Moshi didn't like working in the kilns because the wages paid to women were very low. So she started working on the construction sites, which is where she met my mother. This year, when the lockdown was announced, Durga Moshi and her husband had to return home early. My mother tells me the financial situation of Durga Auntie's house is very bad. Aren't they saving anything? I asked mother. Mother replied, could I ever save anything? I had no answer to her question. My mother's youth was about borrowing money in difficult times and then repaying it with interest. That was all that the mother had done throughout her life. Now, since the lockdown and the ensuing recession, The situation is such that even the village banya and landlords are refusing to lend money to Durga and her family, even with interest. So, money lenders are concerned that people like Durga Moshi will not be able to pay back loans, and if there is no work available, right? Now, they will not be able to pay back loans, will be like what we did earlier in this passage, what we usually do in the critical reasoning would be the assumption, no? So, this person is, the village banya is not giving anything, even on interest. Why? Because he has assumed that, see, these people will not be able to pay back the loans. So none of the rich people of the village are willing to lend money. Rich and middle class Savarna people often take comfort in saying, "Garibi ki koi jaat nahi hoti." Poverty has no caste. After examining the truth around me, I feel that the poverty may not have a caste, but the caste of the rich is quite tangible to us. That means if poverty is not a caste, right? Or does not see caste. But then when we see the rich people, the caste we can understand. So the caste of the rich is quite tangible to us. Now, as we move from lockdown to unlock, the centuries old stratifications of the caste system are quickly becoming visible in the discourse around COVID-19, as is the contempt versus reverence. Contempt is hatred, dislike. Reverence is respect. And purity versus pollution, binary that is core to Indian society. So they are talking about two things now. That is the binary system, no? Now the anxiety over COVID-19 transmission experienced by upper caste will be refracted to the centuries-old lens of caste prejudice and will become the basis for fresh violence and atrocities against Dalit and Bahujan parties. The Nai or barbers, the dhobi or washerfolk, the sweeper, and many such service caste occupations have already disproportionately borne the brunt of the lockdown. Borne the brunt, that means they are facing, all these people are facing, no, the service caste occupations. Compared to the Savarna caste peers, that means the higher caste. We can expect them to be further marginalized in a post-lockdown society. Marginalized means if this is a circle, right, this part will be the margin. So margin will be not being the central. If this is the central, central means key, the most important one. And being at the margins means they are not there in the limelight. So we can expect them to be further marginalized in a post-lockdown society. Now, Prime Minister Modi has laid out his plan to pull India out of recession. He calls it Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliant India. But millions of us have been self-reliant for a long, long time. We know that we have been abandoned by the state. We are by ourselves, but we are also together. In Damadeep Nagar, in the village in Chhattisgarh, where Durga Moshi is hunkered down with her husband, on the seemingly endless streets in the Shramik special trains carrying workers, crammed cheek to jowl, we are together and we will find our way. So, describing the situation in which these workers, because of the caste, they are finding themselves, what is the situation there when the country moves from the lockdown to the unlock stage. Question number 126. Which of the following would strengthen the argument in favor of the economic discrepancies based on caste? That means, yes, economic discrepancies are there. So according to Wealth Inequality, Class and Caste in India, and 61 to 2012 report by Nitin Kumar Bharti, India's Brahmin community alone monopolizes 48% of national income, which is above the national average income, and other upper caste communities secure 45%. Dalit, Adivasi, and OBC together earn far less than the national average household income also. So that means what? Yes, there is discrepancy, or there are discrepancies based on caste. If the Brahmin is coming up with this much, 45% is the upper class, 48% is the Brahmin, and they far less than the national average household. So discrepancy is seen here. I'll put a small tick. Caste and work are independent of each other. So if they are totally independent, that means the work is not going to be seen by the caste, or the caste people are not going to go for different or specific works only. So B doesn't say about the economic discrepancy, it talks about the similarity. Migration is a cause of economic discrepancy, but we were talking about what, not migration, we were talking about caste. So C will be out, B is out, and we have A as the answer. 127, which of the following would weaken the premise? So, in India, there exists no modern idea of labor or work in the lived experiences of majority of citizens. For the labor caste, Shudra and Ati Shudra, at the lowest end of the caste system, work is described as a ritual duty to produce food, goods, and services for the consuming caste, and that is the Brahmins and Savarnas and the higher rungs of the system. No modern idea. Right. Second sentence says the economy of caste isn't premised on reciprocity, cooperation, and interdependence. Rather, the caste system continues with its principles of restriction, coerciveness, violent disciplining, and punishment. We need something that is weakening the premise. So, is this weakening or is it establishing? Reciprocity, cooperation nahi hai. Rather than the caste system continues with its principles of restriction, coerciveness, violent disciplining, and punishment. So that means this is similar to the premise that was used in the paragraph, in the passage. Hence, weakening the premise will be neither A nor B. Right? Come on. Question number 128. Choose a suitable title for the above premise. Now, caste and poverty, that was what we were talking of. Migration and caste, but we did not talk about migration as such. So it will not be in the title also. See, a title will be like a compact central idea. Right? A compact central idea would mean identify the major point, then come to the title. So caste and poverty, yes, we could write. Migration and caste, no. Atmanirbhar Bharat, but he had only mentioned it. So not the central idea. And time for policymakers to bring the change would not be the title as such. So caste and poverty will be your answer. Next question, 129. Which of the following can be concluded from the above passage? So economy and caste are independent social concepts and should not be confused. Should not be confused, but then we get confused now between the economy and the caste. So that was given in the paragraph. So they are not independent. So this is out. Poverty may not have a caste, but everything tells us that wealth certainly does. So wealth certainly does. If you remember that sentence also, no, poverty has no caste, but then definitely those who are rich, we know the caste of those people. Right. So if you remember this much also, you can go back, refer, and then come to the right answer that yes, this can be so. An unconstitutional policy change can be challenged in court of law. So we were not talking about something so drastic. So this is out. And we have B as the answer. Question number 130. Which of the following support the argument in favor of institutional breakdown in addressing the issues related with caste? I'll again read the sentence. You need to support. That means one of these options will be supporting, but what? The argument, and that too in favor of the institutional breakdown in addressing the issues related with caste. That means if we are going to deal with these issues, caste related issues, we should be able to come up with the breakdown of this caste institution. So, the lockdown made clear that India is one nation of two worlds, the ruling upper caste class world and the work caste class world. So, one is the work caste, other is the upper caste. Even those, this is correct, no? Second, even those opposed to the manner of the lockdown criticized it on the grounds of the effect on the economy and the visible human suffering, but very few uttered what was glaringly obvious, and that was caste. So, we need something that is supporting the argument, and this was what the author stated, that they could see now caste being very obvious in the author's statements, and therefore we have both A and B as our answer. That makes C. So out of these five passages, at least three were easy ones where you could have got all five correct. Two were a little difficult one. Let's see how this last passage is. Oh, again China. So in China, it was called Qi, symbol of health. In Egypt, it was called Ankh, the symbol for eternal life. For the Phoenicians, the reference was synonymous with Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. Right. So Phoenicians would mean Greek, Egypt, China. Three civilizations. These ancient civilizations were referring to copper, a material that cultures across the globe have recognized as vital to our health for more than 5,000 years. When influenza bacteria like E. coli, superbugs like MRSA, or even coronaviruses land on most hard surfaces, they can live for up to 4 to 5 days. But when they land on copper and copper alloys like brass, they die within minutes. We have seen viruses just blow apart, says Bill Keeble, professor of environmental healthcare at the University of Southampton. They land on copper and it just degrades them. That means this sentence, this paragraph is focusing on copper being a material that is vital to our health. बस इतना समझना था हमें. No wonder that in India people have been drinking out of copper cups for millennia. Even here in the US, a copper line brings to in your drinking water. Copper is a natural, passive, antimicrobial material. It can self-sterilize its surface without the need for electricity or bleach. That means it can keep itself perfect. Copper boomed during the Industrial Revolution. That means it is giving you the time. Here it is giving you the quality, the characteristics of copper, and here it is talking about this particular material being rich for health. So copper boomed during the Industrial Revolution as a material for objects, fixtures, and buildings. Copper is still widely used in power networks. The copper market is in fact growing because the material is such an effective conductor. But the material has been pushed out of many building applications by a wave of new materials from the 20th century. Plastics, tempered glass, aluminum, and stainless steel are the materials of modernity, used for everything from architecture to Apple products. Brass door knobs and handrails went out of style. That means पहले ये copper के होते थे. So they went out of style as architects and designers opted for sleeker looking and often cheaper materials. Now, before we start with this set of questions, understand one thing. Most of you would have or might have missed or skipped this passage, either because of what you call as the reading fatigue, or you're taking this as a last section of your test, or you are what do you say, you don't have that much time now. You have consumed all your time over other sections. You're not able to give the stipulated what you need to give as 25 to 30 minutes time to this section. You are not giving that much time, so you will be missing out on this question or on this RC. And you could see that we'll take hardly 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes in reading and understanding the passage, and solving of this will hardly take you 3 minutes. That means in the last 4 to 5 minutes also, if you could have done this passage and not leave it. Whereas because we had earlier the passages that we had, second or the third or the fourth one, was comparatively difficult. So my point here is that do not skip seeing any question in your test, because what matters at the end of the day is scoring marks, getting maximum marks. That is your objective. So if we start struggling with a difficult RC or a difficult question and devote 2 minutes to it, make a decision, a proper logical discretion one. Let's see, going to a simpler passage and picking up two easy answers would be better, far better. Which of the following best represents the main point of the given passage? Copper is known to be oligodynamic in nature, the sterilizing effect of metals on bacteria, and can destroy bacteria very effectively. Possible? Let's see. We have to come up with the main point. According to Ayurveda, drinking copper-enriched water first thing in the morning on an empty stomach helps balance all three doshas, kapha, vata, and pitta. ये भी possible है. But then this was not what the main point of everybody would know it. Not everybody, most of you would know it also. You must have seen in the house also. But then this was not the main point of the passage. So if we feel familiar that yes, this sentence is familiar, this is true, no, understand, always go back to the question and see what is being asked. They are asking the main point of the passage. Civilizations have recognized copper's antimicrobial properties for centuries. It's time to bring the material back. Correct. Apart from fine-tuning a digestive system to perform better, copper also helps your body break down fat and eliminate it more efficiently. This is one benefit of the copper. But then why the author has written this passage is because of C. This is the major point. D is giving you only one benefit. B is coming up with a general sentence, sort of. 132. Which of the following supports the author's arguments in the given passage? We need something again according to what the author has said. So health officials recently cautioned bars against using pure copper mugs. So this is out. Ayurvedic drinking vessels made of copper are said to reoxygenate blood, reduce cancer risk, and prevent aging. Claims that are scientifically unproven, according to Dr. Terry and environmental medicine, but they are unproven. So it is not going to support the author's arguments. So B is also wrong. And despite the fact that copper does have antimicrobial properties, potentially killing some bacteria, using these bottles could potentially do more harm than good. So doing more harm is out, and therefore we have none of the above is the answer, which is an easy one to come to. 133. Which of the following, if true, most weakens the author's arguments in the given passage? High concentrations of copper in the diet can result in brittle bones. We need to weaken. So possible. Brittle bones means jaldi fracture ho jayenge. Sleek and shining stainless steel doorknobs and push plates look reassuringly clean on a hospital door. Possible. If a hospital is being renovated, try to retain old copper hardware or have it repeated. ये भी हो सकता है. Working in his lab with some of the most feared pathogens in the world, a scientist has demonstrated that not only does acetone kill bacteria efficiently, it also kills viruses. Nothing to do with copper. So here also nothing to do with copper. Irrelevant doesn't mean weakening. It has to do with the author's point of view. So understand the author's view first, argument first, and then weaken that. The irrelevant sentences are to be eliminated. So what do we have as an answer? The first one, A. Next, 134. Which of the following statements can follow the concluding paragraph of the given passage? Now, if we understand the thought process of the author, we'll see what next in the passage. In animal models, liver toxicity has been demonstrated in several species, and there are case reports of liver disease in humans ingesting excessive concentrations of copper over a long period of time. But then if they are taking in copper and then this problem is being seen, so that will not be according to the author's main point. So this is out. B says, in real world testing, the copper proves its worth. In 2015, researchers compared infection rates at three hospitals and found that when copper alloys were used in three hospitals, it reduced the infection rates by 58%. So this is possible. It would go according to the author's thought process. I'll put a small tick here, then go to the next question. That's one of the real benefits of copper. In other words, using copper doesn't come with the risk of, say, over-prescribing antibiotics. It's just a good idea. But understand, it's just a good idea is not going along with the style of that passage also, isn't it? So real benefits of copper, but now we were talking about where this copper should be applied. So this might come in the same passage, but not exactly after this part of the paragraph. So copper accumulation in the liver is also associated with chronic cholestasis. Individuals do not try to pronounce the word only when you come across this in the exam. When you take the test also, no, don't try to pronounce the words. This is going to consume more time. Individuals with primary biliary cirrhosis, interhepatic cholestasis in childhood, and extrahepatic biliary obstruction might be at increased risk. But then we are talking about the negatives of copper. Copper accumulation is causing us risk or putting us at risk. So this is eliminated. And what we have is B as the answer. Right? A lengthy option, but then could be read quickly. This is the last question. Which of these can be inferred from the passage? Tempered glass has been used since ancient times. Can be inferred. Glass is nothing to do. Plastic is not biodegradable. This was again an easy question. Aluminum and copper have similar properties. And brass door knobs and handrails are expensive. Yes, this we could have seen if I go back to that part of the paragraph. Wait. I'll go back to this. Yeah. The last line, brass door knobs and handles went out of style as architects and designers opted for sleeker looking and often cheaper materials. This says cheaper materials would mean brass doorknobs, and this was expensive. This is where we get the sentence. So these can be inferred from the passage. Now, this was the last question, and that is the end of the discussion here. So out of these 6 passages, at least 4 passages you could have done exactly all correct answers, and there were 2 passages all based on philosophy and all where you might have made some mistake or in understanding maybe or in feeling that this is such a boring topic, so we are not able to do something or I'm not able to understand something. But relax in these kind of passages. Try reading in by breaking the sentences. That is something that is going to help you. Right? So that's all for today, and all the best for your next coming test. So I hope you practice a lot before you go for your next test. So that's all. Thank you.